When you look at all of these things that the Democrats are throwing at the wall, trying to keep Donald Trump either off the ballot, in jail, or otherwise occupied so that he simply cannot campaign, it is clear that this story in Politico is true. Democrats in full-blown freak-out mode over Joe Biden. I mean, why else would they be doing all of these things that they're trying to do to keep Donald Trump again off the ballot, in jail, or off the campaign trail? It's because they are freaking out over Joe Biden and his low polling. I mean, that's what the hush money trial is all about. Everybody knows it's BS, except for, the likes of Robert De Niro. And so I love the fact that Peter Doocy asked Cringe Jean-Pierre this question.
Are you guys here at the White House in full-blown freak-out mode?
What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
There's a Politico
Peter?
story. It sounds like Democrats outside, the quote is, Biden's stubbornly poor polling and the stakes of the election are creating the freak-out.
All right, so let's talk about that freak-out. A pervasive sense of fear has settled in at the highest level of the Democratic Party over President Joe Biden's re-election prospects, even as office holders and strategists who had previously expressed confidence about the coming battle with Donald Trump. All year, they say, Democrats had been on a joyless and exhausting grind. It's kind of like life in America since Joe Biden took the oath of office, isn't it? A joyless and exhausting grind through the 2024 election. But now, nearly 5 months from the election, anxiety has morphed into palpable trepidation, according to more than a dozen party leaders and operatives. And the gap between what Democrats will say on TV or in print and what they'll text their friends has only grown as worries have surged about Joe Biden's prospects. And that's true. You talk about the poor polling, and here's the thing. In the case of the poor polling, well, a lot of this does coincide with what Joe Biden has done as far as policy goes. I mean, the economy, and we've talked about this ad nauseum, so I'm not going to go into it too far, not going to go in too deep, but as far as the economy goes, that's all Biden. Inflation, infusing all of that money into the economy artificially caused all of that inflation. And we're still paying far, far more than we were than when Donald Trump was in office. And that's why you have people like Charlemagne.
Why do you think he's falling short among black voters?
I think that, it's not even just black voters. As you see, it's Latino voters, it's youth voters. I think my man Tim Ryan coined the perfect phrase when he said that, most people in America are part of the exhausted majority.
Exhausted majority. I mean, we're exhausted. We're tired of paying all of this extra money for the things that we need. We're tired of Joe Biden and being involved in these wars. We're tired of open borders. We're tired of all the crime in the streets. And so Charlemagne, and I know that you know who he is by now, he is really speaking for the younger adults in this country who are concerned about the economy. They are concerned about the price of fast food, which we spoke about yesterday. The fact that the vast majority of young people today simply can't afford to buy a home. And so when Charlemagne talks about what is going on with younger voters, I mean, it is absolutely true that Joe Biden is not doing well. People are angry. People are frustrated. And quite frankly, people are broke. And that is why Democrats are indeed in this full-on freak-out mode. I mean, you just heard what Charlemagne was talking about with the young black and Hispanic voters. It's about the economy. So I would say to Joe Biden and Cringe Jean-Pierre,
read the polls, Jack.
Read the polls, Jack. You want to read the polls? Let's read the polls. This is from Real Clear Politics. This is from this morning. Michigan, Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. Donald Trump.
Read the polls, Jack.
Up by 2. In a 5-way race with Donald Trump, Joe Biden, Kennedy, West, Jill Stein. Where does Donald Trump fall?
Read the polls, Jack.
Donald Trump is up by 1. President Biden job approval rating. Do you know that for Joe Biden, his approval rating is only at 42%? Joe Biden's disapproval rating?
Read the polls, Jack.
56% of the American people disapprove of Joe Biden. I mean, the more you look at this, the more you realize that Joe Biden, as time goes on, the more that we get to know Joe, the worse his numbers are. I mean, how about Arizona? Trump versus Biden.
Read the polls, Jack.
Trump up by 1. In Georgia, Trump versus Biden.
Read the polls, Jack.
Donald Trump up by 3. I could go on. Michigan.
Polls, Jack.
Trump up by 2. It goes on and on. Nevada, Donald Trump is up by 9. North Carolina, Trump up by 7. Pennsylvania, Donald Trump up by 3. Wisconsin, believe it or not, Wisconsin.
Read the polls, Jack.
Congratulations, Joe, you're in a tie. I mean, I could go on and on. I think you folks know what I'm talking about. And that is why here's another headline from the Daily Wire. Majority of Democrats approve of replacing Joe Biden with a new candidate. I just told you all the polling. That is exactly the reason why. And so when you've got Politico, and Politico is a, very big political magazine website. When they say that the Democrats, and they're no fans of Donald Trump, when they say the Democrats are in full-blown freak-out mode, well, they are. So when Peter Doocy asks the question...
Are you guys here at the White House in full-blown freak-out mode?
What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
There's a Politico
Peter?
story. It sounds like Democrats outside, the quote is, Biden's stubbornly poor polling and the stakes of the election are creating the freak-out.
You know what? Turn out the lights. The party's over on Joe Biden's campaign. Anyway, moving on. So, Politico, full-blown freak-out mode. And are Democrats worried about the election? So Peter Doocy asks the question, and, this is what old Cringe had to say. Cue the tap dancing music.
So, again, be mindful. I'm not going to comment on 2024 election. I will say this. The president has never forgotten where he came from, who he is. He understands what the American people are going through as they're sitting around the kitchen table. You hear the president talk about his time.
By the way, this was like a minute and a half of old Cringe just repeating the same talking points that she has spoken for the last 2.5 years.
He's going to fight for communities that have been forgotten, and you see that in the policies, economic policies that he's put forward. He's going to continue to fight for the middle class. He's going to continue to fight in every way that he can. You heard me at the beginning talk about junk fees, incredibly important, and he's going to continue to fight and to make sure, that corporation greed doesn't continue to take
all the talking points, right? All the Democrat talking points.
Very clear about.
She brings in, corporate greed, race.
Out a policy where they want to give a big tax break to the wealthiest among us, billionaires and corporations.
There you go.
That's not what the president wants to do.
Class warfare. So there you go. Cringe Jean-Pierre. I think that tells you that clearly they are in full-blown freak-out mode because she had no answer. And you know what's amazing about that? If you look at that clip, you'll realize that Cringe has come up with that same diatribe for the last couple of years. She didn't even have to look at her big book of lies. She's got it, even Cringe. She's actually now got it memorized. And so, it is clear, and everybody knows, that the Democrats are in full-blown freak-out mode, according to Politico. Now, you have this other headline real quick, and then I got to run. Majority of Democrats approve of replacing Biden with a new candidate, according to a new poll. This is from Daily Wire. Majority of Democrats do indeed approve of replacing President Joe Biden with another candidate ahead of the 2024 presidential election, according to a recent poll. It's Rasmussen. And they spoke to 1,113 likely voters, which was conducted May 20th through the 22nd, found that 54% of Democrats believe that it is acceptable for another candidate to replace Joe Biden as the Democratic nominee. Just under half of all likely voters, 49%, say that they approve of the Democrats swapping Biden out for another candidate, with 43% of Republicans agreeing. You know, I don't know. That's a peculiar statement. 43% of Republicans agree that they would approve of the Democrats swapping Biden out for another candidate. I don't approve of that because I think Joe Biden is absolutely easily beatable. And I think most Republicans who are paying attention would admit that. So I do find the whole thing interesting. So that is the state of Joe Biden and the state of his campaign is that you've got a bunch of Democrats who say, you know what, Biden should be gone. We'd have no problem swapping him out. You've got Charlemagne, and Charlemagne is out there saying it's all about the economy. Why is President Biden losing, young Hispanic and black voters? It's all about the economy. And if it's a young voter, they are struggling, and they are struggling mightily. From the rise in fast foods to the rise in the cost of purchasing a home. Is the American dream even still a valid thing to strive for, given all that we know? You want to talk about full-blown freakout mode? Colleges are beginning to freak out because they're realizing that parents are no longer willing to pay those absolutely obscene tuition fees to send their kids to a school, quite simply just to get indoctrinated. So there's a lot going on as far as full-blown freakout mode because nothing for the Democrats is working. The hush money trial isn't working. The Jack Smith investigation, special counsel going after Donald Trump for the classified documents, that's not working either. The more they attack Donald Trump, the better he is doing by and large in the polls. Sorry for the Democrats, but that's just the way that it goes. That's what happens because they signed up for this. They signed up for Joe Biden, who had such a history of lying, such a history of, as Barack Obama said, F things up. That was Joe Biden's resume. And yet they wanted him to be their nominee, and he eventually became president. So now they've got to live with the consequences, like we all, sadly, are living with the consequences of Joe Biden presidency.